ответить на все ваши вопросы в его докладе заранее. Поэтому для того, чтобы задать вопросы Хейнку для доклада завтра, он включит ответы в его доклад завтра, пойдите в Telegram-чат, который мы только что запостили в нашем чате в Zoom, и напишите вопросы, просто вопрос Хейнку и ваш вопрос. Мы обязательно ему все сегодня передадим, и завтра он вам ответит на ваши вопросы. Поэтому воспользуйтесь возможностью. Мы стараемся вам давать максимум. Ваша задача только брать. I'm already mixing everything in my head as well, Russian and English.
Да,
я представила Криса
по-английски сегодня. Я буду говорить по-английски сегодня, но просто приветствовать на русском языке. Очень думаю, русские предприниматели. Я один из вас. Мой карьер на самом деле стал гораздо интереснее, когда я был возможность быть с вами, откроить парочку компаний, и очень люблю с вами там общаться. And anything else before I start?
Да, I will, я просто хочу добавить, ребята, для того, чтобы вам слушать русскую
версию. Listen to the Russian version of this presentation. It's really easy for you to switch on the Russian interpretation channel. You can find this globe icon in your Zoom, and we have Russian interpreter, simultaneous interpretation for you. And Chris can just stay in the current channel without switching on either Russian or English interpretation. And before we move on to your presentation, we can see our second poll. Let's do this. Okay, this is the penultimate day, so we are starting to go crazy a little bit. Tomorrow is our last day, and I hope you have had fun with us. But here is our question. What is the main benefit of the Silicon Valley? Is it access to capital? Is it high competition? Is it attitude to talent? Is it international culture? Or your option? Write it in the chat. Please give your response, and we will go back to the results after Chris's presentation. And make sure to ask Chris your questions in the Q&A section.
We're ready for you.
Спасибо огромное.
Thank you very much. Nastya. It's a really interesting subject that Nastya discussed and what we are going to discuss today. Last time... О, простите, я же на английском собирался говорить. В прошлый раз я говорил о том, как построить команду стартапа.
What Russian entrepreneurs should understand about Silicon Valley. Very interesting. Am I frozen?
No, you're good. You're good.
Okay, good. Just making sure. So, interestingly enough, I think one of the biggest concerns that we have, as entrepreneurs, is usually we talk about the material resource first. We always talk about money. And so I'm going to try and not focus on money only, but the stuff that's needed as well. And a lot of my Russian friends say, hey, how's it over there in Silicon Valley? What's it like? And so on and so forth. And I always use the Russian expression, всегда лучше, где у нас нет, right? You know, it's always better where we're not. And I think that's an important expression because no matter where you are, you can make money. And definitely there's different pluses to doing it over here in Silicon Valley, but there's also a lot of pluses also for doing it in Russia or other economies that are in different stages. So before I went forward, I'd like to go to that next slide. Does my slide show up? Just want to make sure, just to make sure.
No slides yet.
So go ahead, if you could throw the slides on, that'd be great. And real quickly, I wanted to just know who's here from where. We got a lot of people. I just wanted to know, you know, throw up on the chat, whoever wants to throw it up, where are you from? And is there anybody outside of Russia as well? That'd be nice to know. So anybody here from Siberia, East European part of Russia? Where's everybody from?
I saw some people from Novosibirsk in the beginning.
Yeah, I saw that.
So, Istanbul.
All right. Amsterdam.
Spain, Omsk, Crimea, Oslo, Norway. Wow.
That's amazing.
Irkutsk, Siberia. Wow, guys. Unbelievable. Kazan, Moscow, Yoshkar-Ola, Latvia.
We got Irkutsk. Woohoo!
Yes. Tbilisi. Woo! Nice.
That's awesome.
Voronezh.
And I have another question real quickly. Anybody wants to chat in there? Who here is working, you know, is in university or actually working? And also, the next question is, are you in a startup company? And if so, if you have a name for that startup company, it'd be nice to see some obratna svязь.
We're just waiting for the chat. Wow, we're in Vancouver, Canada. And also we have a warm hello from Siberia, from Anthony to you. CEO, yes, we have some CEOs. We have startup founders, Fun Chat, Twegger, VR Diver, Able Book.
Next
a lot
slide.
of founders.
Perfect. Now, do we have a Russian version of this, or is this the English version?
I think we have only English version, but our participants are actually pretty advanced in English. So
yeah, they actually asked us not to translate the slides, so we decided to stop translating them.
That's great.
They're studying entrepreneurship and English at the same time.
There's a lot of startups here, a lot of co-founders, founders, CEOs. This is great. So we're going to have a good time today. Now, my next question is very important. If you have the chance, whatever that means to you, to come and live and work in Silicon Valley, would you come or would you stay where you are? So yes, I would come. Stay where I am, no. Would definitely come. Остался в Russia. Good, very important. Come definitely. No, I wouldn't come. Great. I would definitely come. Would come to Silicon Valley. 50-50. I love that. Thank you, Mikhail. That's nice. Sure would come. Пожалуй, да. Пожалуй, да is a very good one too. We'll be discussing that you know, 100%. So the reason why I bring this up, we can go to the next slide, please. We always talk about that it's always better where we're not. Right? So that's a really important feature. And I'm going to go straight into that as we talk about Silicon Valley, right? So if we go to the next slide, and I'm not sure if you have the little thing. Yeah, if it's working. There's our Silicon Valley, our wonderful television program. You know, just really important. I'm going to go through some points here, some simple stuff that you probably already know about Silicon Valley, but we don't always remember. First off, Silicon Valley to start from the big thing, California is not America. Like Moscow is not Russia. California is totally not America. It's a totally separate reality. Very, very different from most of the rest of the world. Furthermore, Silicon Valley, strangely enough, is not California. Kind of like Hollywood is a separate place. Silicon Valley, which includes San Francisco, Bay Area, it's all the way from San Francisco on the peninsula, all the way down to Silicon Valley, San Jose area, Santa Clara, Mountain View, Palo Alto, all that area we consider Silicon Valley, right? That area is very different than California, very different. So one of the things that right here, when we're looking at the slide, this next thing is very important. That's the most expensive place, or one of the most expensive places to live in the US. As far as the data that I could collect, it's the second after New York City, right? And that's a really, really important thing to remember. So if you're gonna come, you either have a lot of money or have a lot of context. We'll be talking about that a little bit later. Now, the next thing that's I think important here is that we all want to understand that when we go to a new culture, a new place, how we prepare for that. And we'll get into the logistics stuff in a little while, but I think it's really, really, really important to understand that if anybody's going to come here, right, we are already at the state where we really believe in what's called unity and diversity and world citizenship. This is California. I'm not talking about the other parts of America. Like I said, California is not America. And in Silicon Valley, it's the entire world has come here. The smartest, the brightest in the world are coming here. They may be going to other places like Singapore or London. I'm not saying those places are not also world capitals, but Silicon Valley is one of the world capitals. And if you have I'm not sure why we went to the next slide, can go back. So right here, when we talk about everyone is really interested in world citizenship, you have to be able to blend and work with other cultures and other people. It's a new paradigm. And so the best of the best are here. And then the most excellent thing I ever learned about America was from the film Brat Dva, right? So Brat Dva, I'm going to do this in Russian real quickly. In Brat Dva, Masha, один из главных героев.
In Brat 2, Masha, one of the main characters, was asking Daniel,
сказал, слушай, когда они говорят, что вам how are you, how's life, что это значит? Как дела, как поживает? О, они действительно интересуют? Нет, это просто так, говорил Маша. Все здесь просто так, кроме деньги. Да? This expression, everything here is...
Это выражение, здесь все...
Silicon Valley, everything is really superficial except for money. And this is one of the aspects that is truly American in all business. And all business is the same thing. But it's really, really important that the nature of living in America or being in America, it can be very difficult for us who have become familiar with the Russian reality because there is a Russian soul, Ruski duch. And we have closeness with our friends that is very different. Here it's very superficial. A lot of Russians who come over here or people from the Soviet Union, they come over here and they are very, very dismayed because they don't have friendships. Not in the way that they had in Russia or other areas where they lived with the Russian or SNG, people from former SNG. So, I mean, it's really important to understand that when you come over here, it's very dangerous on a personal level. So be ready for that, you know. Not to say you can't have great friendships in America and so on and so forth. It's just very, very different, very different. Anyway, now we go to the next slide. Part 2, Russia, right? You know, I think it's very important not to forget Russia. Obviously, Silicon Valley, you know, is the, you know, the place where the foremost technological revolution is going on, or at least one of them. There are other places in the world like Shanghai, like we said, and other areas. But I haven't been in Russia for 5 years. So real quickly, if you could throw in the chat box, how do you guys feel about Russia right now? Economically, how are things going? Is there possibilities for you? Is Russia a place where you can move forward and do things you feel like you can move forward or not? Too personal?
People are saying that Moscow is good, or our son says it's not that good. Some people are saying that it's growing. Some people are saying we got stuck. Everything goes down. Hard to build business when you are concerned about the safety.
Amen, brat.
Yeah, some people are saying that there are always opportunities. Bogdan is saying that he would move to the US if he would be a millionaire in dollars.
Mm-hmm. So, and forgive me if someone thought it was too personal. I'm not trying to be. I lived in Russia for 21 years. My wife is Russian. Both of my children were born in Russia, in Novosibirsk and in Kemerovo. So, and I'm a Russian citizen, by the way. I have full Russian citizenship, not just Zagran passport, but full Russian citizenship. So if I get personal, I'm trying to be. I am one of. Один из вас, можно сказать. So it's very.
I'm trying to say I'm one of you.
It's not too personal in the way that it's too personal. It's more in the way that it's too close to their heart.
Too painful. Yeah, that's why I came back to America, by the way. It was very difficult. But yes, so I think that one of the things that you have to balance, and I think was really great, and I love to see that, there's a lot of possibilities. You can do things in Russia still. So it's important to understand that if you are where you are and you feel like you have something to add to that business climate, and that business climate is not dangerous to you, right? Then that's one of the great things, and do it wherever you do it. Like there's a lot of people who really understand how to navigate the Silicon Valley environment, because there's a lot of things to navigate there. And some people know how to navigate Russian environment, right? If you have a really good business partner who's not too overly political, but is very connected and is doing very well and has already been, had track record and is trustworthy, because there's a lot of trustworthy people in Russia. It's very important to understand there's a lot of trustworthy people everywhere. There's a lot of untrustworthy people. You can find difficult people everywhere. So the most important thing is to grow where you think you can offer, and also, what do you feel you can, where do you feel safe and good, right? I think we answered most of the questions here. Do you feel like you can grow in the near future there? Also, do you feel like you can, feel that there's a constant growth in Russia? If you want to answer any of these questions that are here, go ahead and throw it in the chat. I'm looking at it. Also, can you make a startup in Russia? This is one of those big questions that I have. So throw up your comments here, because I have a real specific feeling about this. So do you guys think you can make a startup in Russia? And if so, right? If so, is that startup going to be able to just stay in Russia, or is it going to be able to go international? And this is an important, I think, feature.
So I would say opinions are split into two types of opinions. Some people saying that, of course, it's possible. Sergey, very optimistic. Some people are saying that it depends on the industry, and also market is kind of going down. The economy is going down. So a lot of them, some of our participants are saying that you can build a startup in Russia, but also if your sales is in the US, you might have a better chance. So they want to be international, going outside of Russia, even if you're physically staying in Russia.
So real quickly, my particular opinion on this subject, and it's going to get us into the next subject, is really that if you have a startup that is in Russia and does well in Russia, that's great, right? And that's a great community. And in fact, there should be I'm not sure if there are out there because I've never had to read them. I've never done, I haven't done a startup in Russia for a long time, right? But I would read all Russian advice about how doing startups, because American advice on doing startups, especially when you're talking about how to raise capital, your seed rounds, your pre-A, A series, and then so on and so forth, an IPO, for a Russian-born company that's doing that, very difficult to go through those seed rounds and so on and so forth. Most of the rounds of getting capital in Russia is by getting a partner that has actually connections, and you have a very, very, very intimate relationship with them. And that's a very, very different way to do business. I haven't seen the ability to raise seed rounds and do this kind of things you do here in Russia. So it's a very different way of doing it. So I'd really look at Russian startup playbook separate a bit, not about how to build teams and so on and so forth. Those are universal things that work within many different cultures. But I would really look at the data that's coming from Russian authors who have done it. Going international, very difficult. Going international, very difficult. So yeah, what to say, Chris?
It's like, I wanted to add to your point, it's like those people from Beverly Hills who are writing about leaving the comfort zone to guys from Chelyabinsk who never even experienced it.
It doesn't relate, you know? And so, what's this? Chris, расскажите про игровой. Is that a question?
Chris, tell us about.
Yes, we will get back to all the Q&A, all the questions from Q&A in the end. Guys,
Да, мы перейдем к вопросам и ответам в конце. У нас еще будет время в конце для вопросов и ответов.
Question here, right? The Russian way of life is very balanced. Family, going out to the dacha and having very sacred weekends, enjoying your time with your friends, you know, work very separate from business. I mean, not everybody's like this, but a lot of people are like this. I think if you come to America, you will sacrifice that. Sacrifice because America is work, and work. So remember that that's a very important aspect. I think I miss my time in Russia the way in which I had it very balanced between work, family, and friendship. Anyway, let's go to the next slide. So, and this goes back to one of our friends who was writing here. There is always a way to find money. You just need to know where to look, and it's important that if you're in a startup, if you know what you're doing, if you can find the people, you can do a business in Russia, you can do a business in America, and so on and so forth. It just depends on what you're trying to look for. If you're looking for a missionary business that's going to go out there and change the world, right, and really have an impact, doing that from a Russian platsdar, a Russian headquarters, is very difficult. It's just very difficult. Doing that from Silicon Valley, that's probably the place to go, especially within many different industries, especially high tech. And so the question is really, where do you belong? You know, life, family balance, getting enough money to sustain yourself and having a solid business that's under the radar of maybe some, difficult people who might want to come and take business and so on and so forth. That's a good place to be in Russia. If you want to have a larger business that goes and conquers international business and so on and so forth, you probably want to be in Silicon Valley. And let's go to the next slide. And then that's where we really go into know thyself. And this is my wheelhouse, or this is my strong point. I always try to get into people's mind and spirit before making consultative advice for people. I consult from the people that are there in the room. Businesses aren't built on somebody else's business. You can't build a business by the playbook of somebody else, the way somebody else did it, like GE or Apple or Google, right? Or Amazon. You can't take their playbook because you aren't them. All business is created around the founders, their principles, their core values, and then from there it grows outward, right? And anybody who tells you differently is telling you a totally, it's nonsense, because all business is based on the human reality. And yeah, and I see that, Bogdan said, I think it's possible to build a global business in Russia too. Yes, but much more difficult. Yes, but much more difficult. And if you look at, and I always like to look at historical reality, is if you see how many businesses have been able to go into the international market from Russia, right? I think we're going to find very few examples. And that's not just, that's because it's difficult to transfer. But yes, there are some. So know thyself. Let's go to the next slide and talk about knowing yourself. So if you're going to go from where you are to Silicon Valley, or if you're thinking about entrepreneurial reality in Silicon Valley, you should know who you are, right? So, and I got this little kind of Silicon Valley checklist. I didn't copy this from somebody else or someone. I just sat and thought for about a half hour about, those major things that I know from Russians who are interested in coming over to Silicon Valley. And let's talk about the first one. Are you a world citizen? Or are you Russian, right? It's not to say that you can be both, right? If you're a world citizen, Russian is inside of the world, so that's fine. Right? The world citizen means that you come from a Russian background. But if you're very Russian in the way you look at the world, right? And you don't really like hanging around people from other cultures, right? You shouldn't probably come to Silicon Valley, right? So that's the first one, and then are you able to learn English really well or know it really well? And that's read, write, and speak. Americans are insanely, especially business America, they're so brutal. It's like you either know English or you don't know English, and they really are difficult. And so, yeah, then are you ready to deal with American prejudice toward Russians? And this is really, really, really ugly. So I live and I'm around Russians. I'm an American, and I look like an American, talk like an American, but my wife has a wonderful, beautiful Russian accent, which I love. But she gets this guff, about the Russians and so on and so forth. And do you know what Americans think about Russians? Right, this American centrism. You can throw some chats there if you'd like, but it's really, really it is here. They have these preconceptions, so that's important. If you can't take that, then it's going to be difficult. And we talked about this unity and diversity and world citizenship. And we talked about American centrism, right? Which is that America is everything and everything else is, yes, Russian mafia vodka, exactly. There's these stereotypes about Russians that come up. And so the problem is that America is a very large hypocrisy, right? That we tout this belief in America that we are democratic, we are unity and diversity, we're world citizens, we're the leader in kind of adopting culture from other people, and then at the same time everything has to be the American way, and that's not the way it should be. I don't believe in that. But what I do believe is that regrettably we have this continual hypocrisy, which is like you're saying you're supposed to be this, but you're not acting that way, America. And can you live in that environment? So that's an important question. Can you live in that place that espouses unity and diversity and world citizenship, at the same time forces you to be the concept of what is American? Very difficult. Can you assimilate quickly? Can you assimilate quickly? because you got to be quick. And do you have the financial, material, human resources available in America, already in America, and more specifically Silicon Valley? So if you want to come to Silicon Valley, you've got to have a network. You've got to have some money in your bank account. You've got to be able to like find a cheap place to go live, right? So it's friends that have a space. Here's a room for you, whatever. All of those things are very necessary. Now, obviously, there are people that are incredible, intense entrepreneurs who come over and do things that you're like, oh my God, lived in this car for a year, and he or she did this, that, and the other to survive. Worked in McDonald's, blah blah blah. You can do that. You can try that, and I couldn't do that right now. I'm too old. I need my rest, and I can't rest in a car. So that's if you're like, nah, Chris, I'm not going to listen to you. I'm just going to go jump in and do it. Great, go for it. There's been a lot of people. I'm just saying that it changes everything if you have an infrastructure. And if you don't have the infrastructure, get the infrastructure, right? So get the friends and family over here. Get the people that you know or who might be interested. Talk to people like on this group, right? Get their email addresses and start contacting people that are around here. Go online and LinkedIn if you have access, and try and find the people that are here that are Russian, and Facebook, and find the Russian people that are here, and get an infrastructure before you land here. It's not that difficult. And there's a lot of Russians who will like, I'm not going to talk to you, but there are a lot of Russians who will go, yeah, come on, I'll help you out. I'll show you around. And then the question is, and this is where the know yourself is, do you have what it takes? Because it takes a certain steel will to do this immigration, because you're becoming an immigrant. That's what you are. And that's what you're viewed as until you make it. Next slide, please.
Следующий слайд, пожалуйста.
If you answered no to any of these questions, you really need to look inside, right? And Silicon Valley may not be right for you. Remember, America is full of a lot of Russian Uber drivers. And I don't think that's your goal. You don't want to come over here and be a driver for Uber. That's not what you're looking for. So you really got to understand what you're getting into, right? You can experiment if you have a ticket and a round trip ticket, go there, come back, that's great. Now if your answer is yes to all the questions, then you're going to have a chance. If that list of questions you're like, yeah, I can do that, I can definitely do that, then you got a chance. Doesn't mean you're going to get in. You got a chance. Let's go to the next slide. And like we said, it's always better where we're not, right? Всегда лучше, где у нас нет. Next slide, question and answers. I left a lot more time for questions and answers this time because last time we had no questions and answers almost. So